Jaden, do I have your permission to use this interview as a class project?
Yes.
Okay, so to start things off, what is your name, where are you from, and when did you start surfing?
My name's Jaden Sandoval. I'm from Huntington Beach, California, and I started surfing when I was 11 or 12 years old.
Why did you start surfing and what got you hooked on it?
So I started surfing because I grew up going to the beach and bodyboarding and body surfing, and I always wanted to try surfing. So my dad took me to Doheny State Beach to try surfing, and I liked it, but I didn't really get hooked on it. And after a couple of years, we did a camping trip down there, and I surfed for like a week straight, and that's what got me hooked on surfing.
What is your favorite surf spot?
My favorite surf spot is Magnolia Street because that's where I'm most comfortable surfing because my surf team practices there and I get a lot of practice at that spot and I know the wave pretty well.
Jaden's story relates to the theme of sport/hobbies as a story and insight to culture because, as we learned through his interview, he was raised in Huntington Beach, California, which is in Southern California. And through our class, we learned that right after surfing left Hawaii, it pretty much came straight to Southern California and grew its own culture here. And also, Huntington Beach is known as Surf City, USA. And Jaden also mentioned that he was going to the beach often as a little kid, so it was almost bound for him to happen to take up surfing. And it just shows that if you're born and raised in Southern California in a beach community, you're pretty much drawn to surfing from the start. Describe your surfing progression from when you were a beginner until where you are now.
So I started off surfing my dad's longboard and I'd go surf really small waves that were rolling and not breaking very hard. And then I started surfing on my dad's friend's shortboard that was pretty big and I would catch whitewash and learn how to stand up on a shortboard. And then I moved on to a fish board and I learned how to drop into the waves and tried to learn to go down the line. And then I was using used shortboards and I learned how to gain speed and go down the line and do basic maneuvers. And now I'm on a brand new high performance shortboard and I'm trying to get better every day in my maneuvers and turns and tricks.
What are your favorite surfing conditions and what board do you use for those conditions?
My favorite surfing conditions are head high waves that are long where you can do multiple turns. And I use my shortboard for those waves. But for example, if the waves were smaller, I would use a little bit of a wider board so I can paddle faster and get in the waves easier and also gain speed easier on the smaller waves. And if the waves were bigger, I would use a longer board that's more fit for bigger waves so I have more control in them.
Jane's story relates to the theme of technology and nature because through Jane's progression story, we learned that certain waves and certain boards go hand in hand. And through his story, we can also learn that as a surfer progresses in his skill, so does the technology of his board. Going off of that, I think it's so cool today how there's multiple different boards being made for multiple different conditions, and it's just so cool how they can get a board so fine tuned to surf one specific wave and just totally change the surfer's world. Jaden's story also relates to Step into Liquid because, as Jaden previously mentioned, certain boards and certain conditions go hand in hand. In Step into Liquid, we saw how these big wave surfers had to get towed into the waves and had to use these gun style boards because without them being towed in, they wouldn't be able to surf this wave, and without the boards that they use, it would be impossible to surf this wave. This relates to Jaden's progression story because as the conditions change, his board has to change, and through his skill progression. And we also learned that when it's windy conditions from the Step into Liquid piece, some guys chose to use the foil board. I just think this is a great example of how technology and nature comes together in the story of surfing because there's constantly new technology coming out in order to get on top of these conditions and just make it better overall for the surfer. When you go surfing, does it feel more like a sport or hobby?
Sometimes when I'm surfing, it depends what it feels like. Like if I'm surfing in a competition for my school, feels more like a sport because it's really competitive. Other times when I'm out surfing with my friends, it feels like a hobby because we're just having fun. And when I surf by myself, it's just me and the ocean, so it feels more like an art because I can be creative with how I surf and what I'm feeling.
When you go surfing, do you ever feel a special connection to the ocean and the natural environment around you?
When I go surfing, I feel connected to the ocean because I know what the ocean is doing at the time and which way the current is going and how the waves are breaking. And other times when I'm catching wave after wave, I feel really in sync with the ocean. And when wildlife shows up, like dolphins swimming by, it makes me feel even more connected to nature.
Jaden's story relates to the theme of humans in the natural environment because, as Jaden previously mentioned, when it's just him and the ocean together, he's able to bring out this artistic ability and just express how he's feeling through his surfing and through the waves. He's also able to express his theme because as he continues his progression through surfing, his knowledge of the ocean keeps on getting greater and greater. So he's able to read the current and read the waves and know exactly how the wave's going to break and so on. And lastly, he also feels a deeper connection to nature when the wildlife comes out because it just makes him feel, especially one with the ocean, because if it almost is like the dolphins come out because they feel like he's part of the ocean as well. Jaden's story relates to the world in the curl because on page 8 it mentions how the ancient Hawaiians were great surfers, not only because of their athletic ability but also because of their knowledge of the ocean. This relates to Jaden's story because as he continues to surf, his knowledge of the ocean is just going to continue to develop and just take him further. And Jaden's story also relates to the world in the curl because the ancient Hawaiians also express surfing as a part of their culture and made it very special to them. And I feel like Jaden being able to express art through his surfing ability connects him to that culture. If you could go surf anywhere in the world, where would it be?
If I could go surfing anywhere, I'd want to go to Bali, Indonesia, because there's so many different kinds of good waves there, and all the best surfers that go there to film their videos. And I'd want to go to Mexico too because there's really good point break waves there, and I always want to surf good point breaks because the waves just break perfectly every time.
If you could have any surfer in the world teach you and mentor you, who would it be?
If I could have a mentor, I would choose Kelly Slater because he's the most experienced surfer in the world and he's been pro for so many years and he's still on the world tour and he's 40 something years old. And I think that I could gain a lot of knowledge from him and surfing with him.
Alright, so to finish things off, do you see yourself surfing for the rest of your life?
Yes, I do see myself surfing for the rest of my life because it's the most fun thing I've ever done and my favorite thing to do. And the thing that's so cool about surfing is that you're completely at will of the ocean and you're in nature and you're not in control, but you try to be in control and you learn about the ocean, you gain a lot of knowledge, and once you figure it out, it's the most fun thing that I've ever done.
Jaden's story relates to the danger of the single story because through conducting this interview, we got to learn about Jaden's story of surfing. I think this is very important because without taking the time to sit down with Jaden and ask him these questions, I myself wouldn't know Jaden's story of surfing, but also others wouldn't know Jaden's story of surfing. I think this could be very important for all surfers to take the time to do because I think it's very important for them to document their story of surfing because it would add to the overall culture of surfing and also could inspire others to take up the sport of surfing.